Ever since the village of Javac was incorporated into Zagreb, Croatia, the town's weekly flea market has attracted waves of Zagreb residents eager to hunt for bargains. What used to be a quiet, close-knit community now bursts with activity every Sunday as crowds flock in, hoping to find hidden treasures among the assortment of second-hand goods. For some locals, the influx of visitors was seen as an economic boon, a chance to make quick profits. However, for others, especially the farmers like Bovic, it was nothing short of a nuisance. The sudden surge of visitors brought an overwhelming number of cars, far exceeding the capacity of the designated parking lot. Desperate for a place to park, drivers started leaving their vehicles wherever they could find space, often disregarding property boundaries. As a result, Bovic's farm, located conveniently across the street from the market, became a prime target. With its large expanse of open land, it seemed like an obvious choice for those searching for parking when the official lot filled up. To many visitors, it felt harmless to park for just a few hours, especially when they saw others doing the same. After all, it was just a patch of farmland, and to them, it seemed like it could handle the temporary use. However, Bovic did not see it that way. His farm was not just a piece of land, it was his livelihood. Parking cars on his fields, even for a few hours, could cause serious damage. Crops could be trampled, soil could be compacted, and his work and effort would go to waste. Despite this, drivers continued to park on his farm, ignoring the fact that they were trespassing and causing harm. Bovic had expressed his displeasure on multiple occasions. He had put up signs, clearly stating that his land was private property and that parking was not allowed. He even tried speaking directly to some of the visitors, explaining the impact their actions were having on his farm. Yet each Sunday, the same scene unfolded, cars lining up on his fields, ignoring the boundaries he had set. It seemed that, despite his repeated efforts, shoppers were more interested in convenience than respecting his wishes. The situation became increasingly frustrating for Bovic. He had worked his farm for years, and he valued the land deeply. To see it being treated as a parking lot was not only disrespectful but damaging to his livelihood. Yet it felt like his voice was being drowned out by the crowd of bargain hunters who didn't seem to care. The market, which was supposed to bring life and energy to the town, was instead becoming a source of stress and conflict for him. Despite his efforts to communicate the issue, the town authorities had yet to intervene effectively. The designated parking area remained inadequate, and there were no additional measures to manage the overflow. Bovic felt increasingly isolated in his struggle to protect his property. It was as if the town's excitement over the flea market had overshadowed the rights and needs of its residents. As the weeks went by, Bovic's frustration grew. He wondered how long he could continue to fight this battle alone, and whether the community would ever understand the impact their actions were having on him and his farm. For now, every Sunday meant another day of watching his land being misused, hoping that one day someone would finally listen and take action to help preserve the land he had worked so hard to maintain. While most people see parked cars as harmless, Bovic, a farmer from Javac, knew otherwise. After a video of his bold revenge went viral, it sparked controversy, with some accusing him of going too far. But for Bovic, the issue was much deeper than it appeared. Although a few vehicles parked on a small portion of his vast farmland might not seem like a significant problem to outsiders, it had serious consequences. Parked cars can release harmful chemicals like oil and fuel into the soil, compromising its fertility and ultimately his crops. For a farmer like Bovic, whose livelihood depends on the quality of his soil, this was unacceptable. Compounding his worries was the presence of one of Zagreb's largest landfills nearby. The threat of leachate, a toxic liquid formed when rainwater filters through waste, constantly loomed over his farm. This leachate, which can carry harmful substances such as methane, carbon dioxide, and acids, poses a serious risk to the soil and groundwater. If contaminated, the soil could become infertile and crops could be poisoned. Bovich already had enough challenges managing these environmental threats without having to deal with the damage caused by visitors using his land as a parking lot. Initially, Bovich tried a polite approach, explaining to people that parking on his land could harm his soil. Unfortunately, his attempts only seemed to attract more cars. Every Sunday, drivers ignored his warnings, and the problem escalated with rows of vehicles lining up neatly across his fields. A video captured the scene, showing his farmland turned into an impromptu parking lot. The turning point came when Bovich decided it was time for a different approach. He was frustrated, but he wasn't looking to cause harm. Instead of taking drastic measures like slashing tires or having the cars towed, he opted for a solution that was both clever and unforgettable. After countless ignored warnings, he knew he had to make a statement. One Sunday, as cars filled his fields once again, he climbed onto his red tractor, started the engine, and set his plan in motion. Driving his tractor onto the field, Bovich began to plow the soil directly in front of the parked cars. To the onlookers, it appeared as though he was simply a farmer working on his land, tending to his crops. People continued with their business, unaware of his true intentions. However, Bovich's actions were a calculated move. By ploughing the soil around the parked cars, he effectively blocked the vehicles in. The once neat rows of cars were now trapped behind freshly turned earth, making it nearly impossible for anyone to leave without assistance. Word spread quickly through the market as people realized what was happening. Some panicked, while others watched in awe as Bovich continued his work. The video of his stunt quickly went viral. It showed Bovich calmly maneuvering his tractor as frustrated shoppers tried to figure out how to retrieve their vehicles. His approach was a powerful reminder that his farmland was not a free parking lot. The backlash was swift. Some accused Bovich of being unreasonable, arguing that a few parked cars were harmless and that his actions were excessive. However, others defended him, pointing out the importance of respecting private property and the potential damage vehicles could cause to the soil. They argued that he had every right to protect his land and livelihood, especially after his polite requests were ignored. In the end, Bovich's bold action achieved its intended effect. The town authorities, previously unresponsive to his complaints, began to take notice. They arranged for additional parking facilities to accommodate the flea market crowds and placed stricter regulations around parking on private property. Although it took a drastic act to get the message across, Bovich finally reclaimed his farm. For the residents of Zagreb and the visitors to Javac, his tractor stunt became a lesson in respecting the land and the people who depend on it. Little did anyone suspect what was really unfolding. Methodically, Bovich drove his tractor back and forth, turning his field into a freshly plowed mess of soft, tilled soil. At first, it seemed like a regular farming task, and people paid little attention. However, as shoppers returned from the market and attempted to leave, they quickly realized something was wrong. Their cars, parked neatly hours earlier, were now hopelessly stuck in the loose, freshly plowed earth. Bovich watched from a distance, smiling as his plan took effect. None of the drivers who regularly parked on his property ever imagined they would find themselves trapped, unable to drive away. As the confusion grew, complaints started to mount. Angry and frustrated, shoppers tried to free their cars, but the soft soil offered no traction. Word of the situation spread, and it wasn't long before the police arrived. They were greeted by the unusual sight of several vehicles immobilized in a freshly tilled field, with Bovich calmly sitting atop his tractor, watching it all unfold. Normally, an act like this could have led to charges of obstruction or public disturbance, but the situation was far from typical. The police approached Bovich, intending to get to the bottom of the situation. They were aware of the growing tension between the market visitors and Bovich over his farmland being used as a parking lot. As they spoke to him, he explained his side of the story. Bovich calmly pointed out that this was his land, and despite repeated warnings and signs, people continued to park on it without permission, damaging his soil. Ploughing his field was simply part of his work as a farmer, essential for maintaining his livelihood. After listening to Bovich, the police found themselves in a dilemma. While the shoppers were clearly inconvenienced, the facts were straightforward. The land was Bovich's private property, and he had every right to plow it whenever he saw fit. Although it was inconvenient for the drivers who were now stranded, they had parked on his property without permission. Bovich's actions were within his legal rights as a landowner, and he was well within his rights to till his field. The police, after deliberating, concluded that Bovich had done nothing illegal. While they understood the frustration of the market-goers, they informed them that they had no grounds to penalize Bovich. The cars had trespassed on private property, and their owners would have to take responsibility for the consequences. The police left without issuing any warnings or citations, leaving the drivers to figure out how to free their vehicles from the freshly plowed earth. Bovich's actions sent a clear message. He was determined to protect his land and would no longer tolerate trespassing. The incident quickly became a talking point in the town, with some supporting Bovich for standing his ground while others felt his actions were excessive. Regardless, the message was clear. Bovich was prepared to defend his farm, and anyone who chose to park there again would do so at their own risk. The episode highlighted the importance of respecting private property and showed that while the town's economy thrived from the market, it shouldn't come at the expense of those who called the land home. A woman driving a silver Peugeot found herself in a desperate struggle to free her car from the freshly plowed field. She tried everything, moving forward, reversing, and turning the wheel left and right, but nothing seemed to work. At moments, it looked as though she might make some progress, but each attempt only sank her car deeper into the loose soil. Frustration grew as she inched closer to the road, only for her vehicle to become even more trapped. An officer, seeing her plight, offered to help and tried to maneuver the car himself, but despite his efforts, it remained stuck. Bovich watched the scene unfold from his tractor, his point made. He could see the frustration on the woman's face, and it was clear she was learning a valuable lesson about the consequences of ignoring his warnings. Satisfied that she had realized the impact of her actions, Bovich decided it was time to intervene. He drove his tractor back over to her vehicle, this time with the intent to help. With careful precision, he began flattening the tilled soil around her car. Slowly, he smoothed out the ruts and compacted the ground enough to give the car the traction it needed. The woman, now hopeful, climbed back into the driver's seat and tried again. This time, with Bovich's assistance, she managed to ease her car back onto solid ground and onto the road. As she drove away, the look on her face made it clear that she had learned her lesson. She thanked Bovich, albeit a bit sheepishly, and left the area, making it obvious she wouldn't be parking there again. The other onlookers, who had witnessed the entire episode, seemed to take note of the situation as well. Bovich's demonstration had made a lasting impression. By helping the woman out after proving his point, Bovich showed that his intentions weren't malicious. He didn't want to cause harm. He simply wanted people to respect his land and understand that their actions had consequences. The incident not only served as a lesson for the woman in the Peugeot, but also for the other market-goers who had witnessed the scene. It was a reminder that while the flea market was important to the town, respecting private property was equally crucial. The story of Bovich's stand and his decision to eventually help the woman in the silver Peugeot spread quickly through the town. Reactions were mixed. While some criticized him for taking such drastic measures, others defended his right to protect his property. They understood that, as a farmer, Bovich's livelihood depended on the quality of his land, and his actions were justified, especially after he had repeatedly asked people not to park there. Many agreed that he had shown patience before taking matters into his own hands. The incident served as a wake-up call for the market visitors. They realized that using Bovich's farm as a parking lot was no longer an option, and they became more cautious about where they left their vehicles. The message was clear. Bovich was serious about defending his land. The spectacle had also caught the attention of the local authorities, who recognized the need for better parking solutions to accommodate the market crowds and prevent future conflicts. For Bovich, the outcome was a small but meaningful victory. By standing his ground, he managed to reclaim his land and send a strong message to the community about respecting private property. It wasn't just about preventing cars from damaging his soil. It was about ensuring that his work as a farmer was valued and protected. The incident highlighted the balance needed between supporting the town's economy through the market and respecting the rights and livelihoods of the town's residents. In the end, Bovich's actions made people think twice about their choices. His intervention, though controversial, was effective. It encouraged the town to find a better solution for parking and reminded visitors that they couldn't ignore property boundaries for convenience. For Bovich, it was a step toward ensuring that his farm remained intact, respected, and free from intrusion, securing his livelihood for the future.